Hi guys, Emma here, and today I'm going to do a quick review of Stranger Things 2. I like actually that they don't call it season 2, they just call it Stranger Things 2 as if it's one big movie, and I'd like to bet that many people watched it as one giant chunk rather than separate episodes. I know I got it through it quite quickly, and I think that's how a lot of people consume their television nowadays, binge watching. So here is my review. So after the first season of Stranger Things, I was pretty much instantly obsessed with the show, and I was so eager to see the second season. I am so excited by the young cast in this show. I think they are brilliant, and in particular in this season I think that there were a couple of standouts for me in terms of brilliant acting, and I think that Gaten Matarazzo was particularly wonderful in his role. He had a very rounded performance, being able to undertake many different emotions for his character. So he was able to play the comedy role as well as more serious parts, and he also took a big lead, I think, in the gang, whereas I felt like Mike had been the leader in the last season. I felt like Dustin really stepped up this season and became quite a key character in that group of boys. I also think that Noah Schnapp was pretty good this season in terms of his presence, his ability to act as this terrorized boy, and I applaud him for being so crucial. If you know, everything seemed to rest on him throughout this season, his reactions, and I think he really had to tap into an audience who had to care about that character. And that might have been quite difficult because of the fact that Will was absent of much of the first season. So while we fell in love with like the camaraderie of the other group members, Will was missing for most of that. So for Noah Schnapp to be able to bring Will back into that scenario and to make him the center point of our focus, I think that was really clever and well performed by him. In terms of the season storyline, I felt like it was a logical sequel to the first season, and in some ways I think it was almost more exciting. I really like that the character of Eleven didn't just stay as this very mute, barely communicative girl that she had been in the first season, and that she was actually able to communicate a little bit more. I think that for me that really helps me to understand this character a little better, like the character a little better, because I think Eleven might have been my least favorite character in the first season. I just think it's very difficult sometimes if you have a character who doesn't talk and who can only use facial expressions. It just becomes very difficult to appreciate what's going on with the character in the moment. I thought her relationship with Hopper was particularly interesting and emotional. It had a lot of depth to that story. I thought that relationship obviously echoed back to Hopper's relationship with his daughter and Eleven's relationship with Papa. Now, I read an article about the new characters in this season not being as great as they should have been, and I actually like Max a lot. I think that she was a necessary addition because of the fact that I think that, you know, these boys, they're growing up, they are a year older when we come back in season 2, and I think that, you know, as you get older you start to branch out of being just the boys who play with each other, and you start to realize that, you know, girls can be part of the group and have this interest in girls outside of just playing as well. So I think that was a logical step that another girl would be inducted into that group. I think the character's an interesting one, although I did not like the end scene with her and Eleven, in which Eleven basically brushed her off. Understandable, I guess, in some sense, but I just felt like it was written from a male perspective maybe, and that actually girls wouldn't be like that. So at the end of the day, I didn't really like the idea of there being any conflict between Eleven and Max. I don't think that that would be something that I would really want to see any more of. So by season 3 I hope that that has been resolved. In regards to Max's brother, I can't remember the character's name, so that might tell you something about how much he has resonated, but to me he just came across as Kiefer Sutherland's character in Stand By Me was who I was thinking of the entire time he was on screen. He was mean. I did read an article by a critic who said that they thought that this character was unredeemable, and that this character had been brought in because of the fact that Steve had meant to be the original antagonist of the piece, but because audiences had responded to Steve so well that they had to bring someone else in who was a threat. That's why this character had been brought in, and that he was so nasty that nothing that he did or said could ever be taken back. You know, he couldn't suddenly grow and become a better person. However, I kind of disagree with that, because I think the scene in which the father confronted him and knocked him up against the wall and was like telling him what to do and how to behave, and obviously abuse creates abusers basically, and that's what I saw in that scene. And I think that, you know, there is a way back for that character if they really wanted to write a way back for him. So the whole story with the baby Demogorgons, at first that reminded me a little bit of Flight of the Navigator / Gremlins, with these little creatures that were demanding to be taken care of, and then it all goes to hell. So I thought it was really well done. The CGI and everything just looked really good. And I love that, you know, the Dustin's story with the baby Demogorgon, Dot, came to fruition and had this really touching moment when he said goodbye. It was definitely a moment, I think, where we saw Dustin's character growing and learning about life and love, basically, even though this was a baby Demogorgon. In terms of the Justice for Bob storyline, I really liked that, and I liked seeing Nancy's breakdown over the whole thing. I think that was a logical place to go with her character, and her breakup from Steve seemed inevitable. I think her union with Jonathan also seemed inevitable. I think I really like Steve, and I think that Steve became a different person in this season. He has evolved. I know that the Duffer Brothers like look back on 80s movies, and when Steve was first in this, I imagined him as being like a James Spader type rich boy who was like full of himself and very cocky, and in the second season he seemed more like an Andrew McCarthy kind of sweet but intelligent and charming kind of lad. For his trajectory, I think that they would have to keep him in town, and I can see him as sort of being like a very frustrated teen who was held back by his father and made to work for his father in this small town. I can see that being his potential storyline for season 3. Getting on to the very controversial episode 7. Oh, I say oh, but I didn't really hate it. I didn't love it either. When it started, I felt like I'd been taken out of the 80s for a start. Even though these characters were styled very well, and I liked the way that the dialogue was written for these like punk outcasts. However, the whole setup seemed to me like very unoriginal. Like, it was just like every superpowered freak thing that I've ever seen basically, and it was not like Stranger Things anymore. But I think that the episode was necessary for Eleven's journey, for Eleven's evolution, for her to learn the difference between using her powers for right and wrong. What took me out of the episode a little bit was seeing the actor Vince Pruitt-Taylor, I think his name is. He's a very well-known actor who has been in tons of movies, a lot of them in the 80s, and I think we might be seeing him again because he had a very small part in this season. Wouldn't surprise me if he crops up again because he's such a talented actor and he is a well-known name. I was a bit confused that Eleven drew upon her sister's advice when she was trying to close the gate towards the end. She had this flashback of being told how to use her anger to inflame her power and to better utilize her supernatural skill. And I thought, well, if she has been on this journey, 11, and she has learned that she shouldn't use her powers to hurt people, then why is she drawing upon this advice given to her by this girl? I do hope that really they don't branch off to a city somewhere, or this isn't their initial step into sort of a spin-off thing. It wouldn't work for me, I'm afraid. I also thought that some of that episode, like the beginning when it was like repeating the sequence of what the mother was thinking in terms of relation to her memories, her horrible memories about what had happened to her and how she'd been pregnant and the baby taken away, I thought that was really pretentious. It was like overdone. It was like arty-farty basically. And I didn't like it. I think the episode also was like a wall between episodes 6 and 8, and that gave us some space to really think about the other characters back in Hawkins and grow this sense of anticipation about what was happening to them. For that, it was a positive thing. I don't know if I would want to revisit any of those characters again, but I have a feeling that we might. Stephen King tweeted recently saying, "This is how you do it, folks. You just tell the story straight, no fussing about, basically, and it's great entertainment." And I kind of feel like that is true for most of the season, apart from episode 7 when they had a little bit of a detour. I think this is one of the best shows to come out of any TV platform in many years, and I've been recommending it to everybody. I'm so excited about it. I've watched the season, I've like rewatched the final episode, and I want to start again basically. It's so much fun, it's so emotional. I love all of these characters, I love the cast. Word of mouth really helped with the first season, but now I think it's unstoppable. I expect it to go to 4 or 5 seasons depending on how these kids age, but I definitely think there are a lot of places left to go with the story. That last episode left me feeling like more of the same story was going to play out in season 3, but I do think that potentially they will explore the rest of the missing kids from the experiments numbers 1 to 10 minus 8 who we've already seen. And I also think that, you know, the Mind Flayer will come back into play because he was looming over the school. Does that mean that something's going to happen at the school, some sort of Carrie-esque affair where everything at the school goes haywire? That would be potentially exciting for me. I like the way that the relationships ended off as well. Very sad to see Bob being killed, but I do think that the Hopper and Joyce relationship seems like it's destined to ultimately be a pairing. So anyway, that is my quick review of season 2, which I really enjoyed, and that's it. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.